Yes, right now. And I do believe that we are live. Look at that. Just like that. Technology. It
Yay.
is kind of magical.
Penny's
Let's not get ahead of ourselves, friend. I don't. I'm not. I'm not sure. I'm not sure if we're ready for good just yet, but we're getting there. We are getting there. So it is 3:30. Normally we pop on a couple of minutes before 3:30 and get ourselves situated, but today we did not do that. We just popped right up at 3:30 like internet magic. So
a little hello world.
hello world. But since we're here, let's get straight into it, shall we? Excellent. I am Jill Bates Moore. I am one half of Dahlia Law Group. I am apparently a budding home barber, unless you ask my husband. And who are you, ma'am?
I am the
Oh, a nail artiste. You are an artiste, ma'am. Well, I've seen your work, and I think you can lay rightful claim to that. You turn out a quality product, Holland. Yeah, I on the other hand, I'm just gonna say I'm still working on it. I'm still working on it. As you can see, we have our little streak of something that happened here. But I am pleased to report that this is hair, whereas the last time we met our heroine, she had carved an entire bald streak, just gone. But anyway, we're calling it art. We're calling it art. Hi, Naomi. Naomi is here. Lisa is here. Hi, Lisa. It is good to see you both. Right. Let me tell y'all something about our people. Our people are so supportive, and we are blessed to have such a wonderful community of folks that we get to be a part of. These folks are so beautiful. They message us on Tuesday to say, isn't it time to start getting ready for the live stream? Yeah. They're so supportive that they call us on the day ahead and are like, it is Wednesday. Let's get to this live stream. I cannot tell you how much I appreciate that. And yeah, I mean, you need folks who ride for you. That is a legacy issue. Bloop. You know what? Don't do that. That little boy almost got himself. Has anybody else seen this? I don't know if it's a meme or whatever. It's an internet video where this little boy is talking about, and he's little, like elementary school age. It looks like he is talking about his girlfriend or whatever at school, and he is very passionately telling his mother that that's his girlfriend on life, mama. It's very serious. Very, very serious. So, Holland, how are you doing? And I'm really asking, so really tell me. Mm-hmm.
Therapy for Black Girls had a post on
Mm-hmm.
her that said, "Joy is my birthright."
Yes.
I'm like, that is right doggone it. So even when some are looking a little squirrely or upsetting, like to just find my way back to joy, to try to find back to the joy of it all. And so I'm excited that I have been doing a pretty decent job of getting there, even when some other things I'm like, yeah, yeah, yeah. So that's where I am on today.
Hey,
How are
hey, hey.
you?
You know what? I'm actually getting a note that we can't hear you. So hold on a second and let's see. Thank you, Naomi. Thanks for letting us know. We're going to see if we can fix it. Alicia, would you mind just double checking your sound? It was working. See, when you say we are
Sorry.
technology experts, now look at
I
that.
didn't say expert. I just felt like Cleveland was getting safer every day.
Hmm.
Turns out not so much.
Okay. So, Lisa said we can hear her now. Naomi said you're back. And it was about 2 minutes of silence. So, um, given that, I'm going to ask again. Do you mind if I ask again? Yeah, it looks like maybe you were frozen. Do you mind if I ask again how you're doing?
Yes,
Yeah.
I will be happy to tell you because it's still, even in the we on the internet breaking stuff of it all, which is that I am not embracing, but at least leaning into this is what life looks like right now in quarantine. And so rather than bemoaning it and the changes and what life looks, how it looks different, to just find my joy in what it looks like now and lean into the things that, frankly, are things that I get to do now that were hard to reach for
Mm-hmm.
before. So I know I talked to some folks over the weekend, and one of them was saying that she loves to sew, and I was telling her about some of the projects that I had been working on and other people, and she's like, how do people have time to do these things? And I think, man, I love doing this. So this is a thing I get to make time for. And I talked to somebody about reading a book, and they said, oh, I don't have time for stuff like that. I'm like, oh, that is I don't embrace that.
Mm-hmm.
So I am leaning into the fun of that. I finished a book last week and have started my next one and finished some sewing projects, and I'm thinking about the next one and just enjoying being here
Yeah.
because that's not true for everybody.
Yeah. I think that's beautiful. I really do. I think that's really lovely because there's so much right now that there is so much that requires so much bandwidth from us, and it requires us to leverage so much capacity. And some of us do that with more privilege than others, right? So maybe it's a shorter reach for some of us than it is for others, but wherever we are, it feels like people are just being taxed to the limit. And there are reasons and analyses for all of that. In the embodied experience, it is a gift to be able to access things that build capacity for us and that make space for us to be in a way that feels easeful and that feels accessible, at least. So I'm grateful for that for you, because I absolutely agree that joy is your birthright. 100%.
I shall claim it.
Claim it.
How are you doing?
Um, I am. So today is, like, I'm answering that question out of this specific moment. Today is a very dense day for me, and so I'm feeling powerful. I'm feeling powerful in a way that I haven't always or don't always. Yeah, I think that's the best summary that's the best roll up summary that I got for it. Yeah. Yeah, I think that's what it is.
I'm excited for you because to think dense and powerful, getting to live in the same place
Mm-hmm.
feels really huge to me. Like, because it's one thing to have a dense day and feel powerless about
Yeah.
it. So to be in power about it, like,
Yes.
yeah,
Yes. Yes.
everybody better watch out. Stuff's going down.
Yeah. No, I'm really grateful.
Boss is at work.
Really grateful for just to be me where I am, because yeah. Yeah. That's where I am today. What, my friend, are we talking about? We have a relatively short conversation today. Naomi says, come on through with joy and power. Yes, ma'am. Yes, ma'am. How are you feeling? Tell us how you all are doing. And I'm like, I hope you know that I'm really asking. So really tell us. While they're doing that, Alicia, tell us what we're talking about today. And I'm going to tell you that I don't have my notes up because reasons. So can you
I got you.
just throw your friend a life preserver. Yeah, help your girl out.
Who showed up to the meeting without a computer the other day? Like, I got you.
See, I wasn't even gonna say nothing about that. I wasn't even gonna say anything. But thank you.
So today we are talking about the anatomy of a HIPAA authorization and what that is, what needs to be in it, who needs one, and how to get it done. So a couple of things for our disclaimers that we did not cover initially. We mentioned that we are the halves of Dahlia Law Group that make the whole. We are a firm based in California, which means that we are California lawyers licensed to practice in California. So when we reference things, we are talking specifically about California law, and you should know that, so that if you need to talk to somebody in your own state, then you can do that. One of the nice things about our conversation today, in particular with the HIPAA authorization, is that HIPAA is a federal law. And so this part is going to apply pretty much to everybody. So that's what we're talking about. So,
ooh, wait, I got an answer before we jump in. Naomi said that she's feeling capable and responsible. Got those taxes done in about 35 minutes. Hey!
Getting it done.
Yes, that is capable. I love that. I love that word. Capable. Yes.
I pull out my little marker here because I like joy and powerful, birthright. So.
And capable. Mark that down. Mark that down. Just mark it down for me. Put a star by it.
So I'm putting them all down there because I have a doodle like emerging in my mind about these things.
Oh.
The word collage.
Okay. And Lisa says she's feeling rested and ready to get some sewing done. Rested? Somebody got some rest on the good evening?
To bed.
Okay.
Bless the Lord, oh my soul.
Okay, this is a triumph. We actually know Lisa, and so we know that that restfulness is a triumph. So yes, absolutely yes. Katrina's here. She says hello. Hey, friend. Yes. Okay. So we said this is going to be a short episode. So we're going to honor that. We are. Watch what happens. HIPAA authorizations. So last week we talked about the anatomy of an advanced healthcare directive. So we talked about people getting to make decisions for you, and also people who appointing people to carry out decisions that you've made. HIPAA authorization is sort of it's a companion tool in that health space, because this has to do with medical privacy. We are talking about who gets access to your personal health information, and spoiler alert, you get to decide. So
speaking of power,
right, power and capability. Look at that. Friends coming through with the themes for the segment.
I love it.
All right, talk us through it, Holland.
So with HIPAA, when we're saying that, HIPAA is actually an abbreviation, and it is the Health Insurance Portability and Accountability Act. And this is a federal law that is around medical privacy that limits the use, disclosure, and release of your protected health information. So, in practical impact, where you have seen and experienced HIPAA in your world, is when you go to the doctor and they're asking you for identifying information like your birth date, or if you've tried to request records and they make you sign a form, or if somebody else asks for your records and you have to sign a form for them to be able to get them. All of those are things that are around HIPAA.
Mm-hmm.
It's around your medical privacy and not disclosing your information outside the people that you have authorized to have it.
Mm-hmm.
Now, some states also have a HIPAA equivalent law as well. So, for instance, in California, we have the abbreviation for it is the CMIA, which is the Confidentiality of Medical Information Act. And because California is always extra about some things, ours provides even more protections than what HIPAA, the federal law, does. And so that is going to be one of those points that you can check on with your state of if you have an additional law and what additional protections that you may have, but it's going to be at least to the level of HIPAA and then the federal version, and then your state may have even more extensive protections.
Excellent. So we know what it is, we know what the law is, and we know, sort of what the authorization is designed to do in broad strokes. So what we are going to talk about for the rest of this segment is what's required to put it together, what you might want to be thinking about as you're putting it together, like who should go in it or what should go in it, and then some practical tools. As always, we try to leave you with an action item that you can do with or without a lawyer. So this is not meant to be things that you have to run off and hire a lawyer to do. Did I leave anything out over outline wise?
And why it matters.
Well, yeah.
Why you need this.
See, this is what happens when you don't bring your notes to class. Okay.
You
know.
So speaking of why it matters, because you might be saying, well, I just don't want anybody to have access to my information, which may be the case. However, we would recommend that you still have your HIPAA authorization for a couple of different reasons. One is good to have a standalone HIPAA authorization and not rely on the folks that are listed in your Advanced Healthcare Directive that we talked about last week, because it may be a list, because these are people that just get to know information that are not necessarily decision makers. Mm-hmm. And thinking about why you might have more people than just your decision makers on the list is that in some facilities, for instance, they take a very strict approach to how they apply HIPAA. And so they may not even disclose whether or not you are a patient in their facility unless somebody is on your HIPAA authorization list. So if somebody's just calling just to talk to you or to check on you, if your name is not on that list, if it's one of those stricter approach facilities, they will give you something like you see at a television. We cannot confirm or deny whether we know this person.
Right. But also, too, I'm thinking of practical things, like if somebody needs to, or I'm sorry, of other practical things as well, like if somebody needs to get access to like a prescription for you or something like that, if somebody is caring for you and they need to refill a prescription or they need to get prescription history in order to get you ready for a doctor's appointment with somebody who maybe doesn't have the records, or I'm making things up off the top of my head right now, but that's kind of the point, that things come readily to mind for why you might need this. Any other practical examples for when a HIPAA authorization might be useful?
Yeah, when something is happening where maybe you are in some crisis or in need of care, and they need to get access to who has the right information so that they can provide it to the care team that you have, the HIPAA authorization will be what will help open some doors for the folks to be able to get the information to the people that need it to help you.
Yeah. And I would say the last example that I can think of right now, and I know we'll talk about how long a HIPAA authorization lasts or can last in a moment, but it's relevant here just for mentioning, because in the event that something has happened to you, either somebody did something they weren't supposed to do, or they didn't do something that they were supposed to do, and it caused you to have a bad health outcome. Think like medical negligence or wrongful death or something like that. A HIPAA authorization, if it is still valid, can allow the people who you've authorized to get your medical records so that that issue can be investigated. If somebody needs that information, needs those records in order to investigate, what happened here. I talked to somebody this morning, just put a pin in that sentence. I know I stopped in the middle of a sentence. I'm going to come right back. I talked to somebody this morning who had a relative who went into the hospital for back surgery and came out of the hospital having had both of her feet amputated. And I'm not saying that somebody did something wrong at the hospital, because who knows why they may have felt that might have been medically necessary. But if I go into the hospital for my back and I come out with no feet, somebody needs to explain what in the world happened. So in that instance, if somebody has an authorization for that person, they can get access to those records so that an investigation can be done to figure out exactly what in the world went on here, and if somebody needs to be held accountable for that. Otherwise, the way that you get access to medical records is, at least in California, is via subpoena. And in order to get subpoena power, you usually have to file a lawsuit first in order to do that. And sometimes you don't necessarily want to have all of the responsibilities that go along with having a lawsuit, just to get access to the records to figure out what went on.
And the expenses of filing a lawsuit just to get the information.
Yeah. Yeah, for a noteless wonder, I actually contributed something today, so mark me down. Right.
So a couple of notes about, we're talking about all of this access and information, and so something that's important to know is just because you have a HIPAA authorization, it does not mean that you are required to give access to all people, to all information from all people at all times about your medical information. You can put some limits on this. So you get to say who gets access to what records they have access to, what medical providers it applies to, and you can say for how long that access is granted. So I'm going into the hospital and I want my people to be able to talk to the folks at the hospital about what's going on. I can have a limited document for that interaction that gives more blanket access than just call any doctor of mine that you want and they'll tell you anything that you want to know out of my records, because that could be a scary thought of like, hold on. I want them to know some things, but I don't need all my business in the street like that. So that's an important distinction. And another one that's really important is that it does not include access to psychotherapy notes.
Yeah, that is really important. And this is one of those things that when we talk to young people about why this planning matters for them, right? This is actually one of those places where it can be the most obvious, right? A young person, and I'm thinking when I say young person, like young adult, which, look at this gray. It's not me anymore. I'm young in spirit. But ask my knees and they'll tell you something else. But a young adult who might be still on their parents' health insurance plan, so parents are paying for the young person's health care. Parents might think, oh, of course, I would get access to know what's going on with my child's health. And that might not be consistent with what the child actually wants, right? So I mean, think like college age. I was still on my parents' health insurance when I was in college, but they didn't need to know all that. Did they? No, I don't think so. I think we're better. For them not having known. But that authorization is a way of controlling. That.
Yeah, and that's frankly one of the reasons that younger adults need this, because sometimes the assumption is if something happens to me, my parents will have access.
Mm-hmm.
And so if they want the parent to have access, they would need this form. And another example of that is something that came up recently. One of our clients raised for us that once her child hit 12,
Mm-hmm.
then parent access to the medical records and being able to come into exam room for whatnot was cut off, and the child had to give permission for that. And so a HIPAA authorization is where that could easily come into play. So thinking those are the people of the who needs this. So everybody, any adult over 18 should have this, because this gets to be your list of who should be allowed, and you can also put in there who should not be allowed to have access to information.
So if there's somebody
that you need to limit, then this is where you get to put that. So these people are authorized. Or enter. I'm thinking of my typewriter.
You're so old.
These people are not authorized to have my information, so that you can literally make it plain on the paper. I always think of the HIPAA authorization as providing to my care team, this is my safe list. These are the people I'm okay with you talking to. And so if there's somebody on they are not on the safe list, then this is where you get to specify that.
I think that's really, really important. We talked about that a little bit back when we were doing the emergency toolkit series, and we were talking about this is the series that was the first and second episodes of our live stream, and we were providing tools for must have sort of emergency toolkit planning items, especially for if you're going to be out demonstrating or protesting, things to have in place. And we talked about this tool in the second episode. So the nomination of guardians for kids, we talked about this idea that having a safe list is an important thing, but it can be equally as important to have an unsafe list, right? Like, under no circumstances do I want XYZ person to have access to my health information, right? It allows us a way to be direct and clear, so that people don't have to interpret our intentions, right? Like, we set them up to get it right for us.
So now that we know what it's about, shall we talk about what should be in it?
Please and thank you.
So first thing is your full legal name.
Mm-hmm.
It needs to say who it applies to. And when you are thinking about putting your full legal name, another thing that can be really useful to include here is any AKAs, or also known as designations for how your name might appear in your medical records. So if there was a period of time where you really went by your middle name and just used middle name, last name, and you have medical records that could have that, then make sure you put that. If your last name has changed at any point, then making sure that all the versions of last names that you have or have used, whether they were legal name changes or just names that you used in common dealings with folks, include that in the list so that however that name of yours shows up on a particular medical record, your people would be able to get access to it.
Yes. And it should also include who has access, and we've talked about that a little bit already, so I won't belabor that point. So who has access and who doesn't, but also what they have access to. So, like Alicia was saying earlier, there might be limitations on the medical information that you want to authorize folks to receive about you. It might just be information from a particular hospital or from a particular doctor or provider, right? It might just be that, or it could be, you're authorized to get whatever you need in order to care for me well, and for how long that authorization is good. When does it expire? Either by date or by event. And Alicia is going to tell us why that's important.
So the reason that is important is by date could be that example that we just talked about where you're checking into a facility for a particular time frame, and so you're giving them access to that information. Another time where a by date may come into play is if you are granting somebody access to your records because of some situation that you have going on. So a common example of that might be I'm involved in a lawsuit and the people that are asking for records need that HIPAA authorization in order for my facility to release those records. That might be a place where I want it to be time limited, to be the frame that is around that lawsuit instead of the full breadth of my medical records. Mm-hmm. Then with the event piece of it is fairly common, unless you specify otherwise, that a HIPAA authorization is going to expire on the event of your death. So that is a place where you might want to extend that a little bit longer beyond that. So thinking about that situation that Joe was just talking about, of if something has happened and we have questions and want to get some information and do some investigating, having that HIPAA authorization extend a period of time beyond death would allow your people to be able to get access to those records so that they could get having the added burden of having to file a lawsuit solely for trying to get answers to questions.
Exactly. So it needs to include your name, your full legal name, and the names that you would go by or have gone by that might show up in your medical record, so that the facility can know, or the healthcare provider can know exactly what whose stuff they can release, who they can release the information to, for how long, and what they can release. Right, so whether it's information by provider, by facility, if it's information by date, right? Like you can only release information that pertains to, like Alicia was saying, with the lawsuit example. One other very important thing that's got to be in there is the signature. You got to sign it, and you have to date it. And so that signature has to either be from you or somebody who is legally authorized to sign for you. It looks like our feed to Alicia has frozen again, so give me just 1 second. I can hear Alicia, but I don't think that you all can. Alicia, what was the next thing? You tell me what the next thing was while I try to get us sorted here on the... Got it. Hold on one second, Alicia. Can you all hear Alicia? Did you hear her say anything about a birthday? Alicia, try for me one more time. Tell us again about Alicia was telling us that there's a nice to have item in the HIPAA authorization. It's not required, but it's nice to have. What is that?
Yeah, so the nice to have that's not required is your birthday.
Okay.
And the reason for your birthday has to match the name as an identifier so that all they can reference the correct Mary Wheeler instance.
Got it. All right.
Am I back?
Yes, you are back. You are back. I can see you here.
Where I went, but I'm glad
You're right. Okay, so we have talked about what it is, who needs it, why, what should be in it. Is there, I think now, especially since we're at the 35-minute mark at this point, now is a good time to give some practical tools for how to, for what to do next regarding a HIPAA authorization.
So yes, this is one where that's a not required, and the answer to that is several updates that could be triggered here. So I want to change the people that are on for who's on, who's off. Also, when you want to change the access points, then those are going to be points where you want to update it. So what information people do or do not have access to, or the time frames are going to be when you want to update it.
Got it.
So it can be kind of, this one is a really dynamic document that can have multiple times where you'll need to make updates to it.
Yeah. In terms of practical things to do right now, Alicia, I'm getting a message that we can't hear you again. Can you test for me?
Yes, I don't know where I keep going.
I don't either.
I am still here.
I know, I don't know what's happening. I think it might be a broadcast issue, but I'm not entirely sure how to fix it. Katrina, can you hear Alicia now? No, I'm sure that you can't. Okay, so I am, Katrina said that you're back, but that she didn't hear the first part. So what Alicia was saying, because her feed is frozen again, even though she looks really lovely in this screen, I know it's totally not appropriate to be distracted by how lovely she looks in the midst of the technological breakdown. But if you're going to have a technological breakdown, shouldn't you be lovely in the midst of it?
If I may be frozen cute.
Right? So, all right. So I'm getting feedback that your feed is fading in and out. So if it's okay with you, I'm going to summarize and then close us out. Is that all right?
Yeah.
Okay. So what Alicia was sharing is that the HIPAA authorization is a dynamic document. It is one of the tools in a legacy and estate plan that that you might have your hands on. Pretty frequently, and that there are plenty of times when you might want to update it or change it. So anytime you make a different decision about who should be in or who should be out, what information is covered by it, and what the restrictions are. This is also a tool where you may have more than one going at a time. So that's also okay. Just because you have one doesn't mean that you can't have another one. You can have HIPAA authorizations for different purposes. In terms of something that you can do right now, make one. Just make a HIPAA authorization. You can get one from your doctor's office. You can get one from, I think the Department of Health and Human Services has a form. We will get a form in the show notes for this episode. But just have one. Yeah. Alicia is telling me to tell you to check with your health plan because they might have one as well. And so get that, fill it out, and sign it, and then heed that advice that we gave in the previous episode, in last week's episode, when we were talking about advanced healthcare directives. Drop a copy of it in that same Ziploc bag with your advanced healthcare directive and put it in the back of the freezer. Listen, I am Jill Bates Moore, and
put it on file with your doctor.
Yes, and on file with your doctor. Alicia is in my ear. I don't know if you can hear her, but she's in my ear saying, tell them to put it on file with their doctor. I am Jill Bates Moore. I'm going to close us out now. I am going to speak on my own behalf and on behalf of my partner and good friend, Alicia Holland. We really, really, really appreciate you being here. Please share these tools widely. We hope that they are useful to you, and we hope that you can use them to be useful to somebody else. So share them out. Have people meet us here on Wednesdays at 12:30 Pacific time to have these conversations and to share this information. If you have questions for us, please feel free to leave them in the comments. We actually do check them. Please feel free to DM us on Instagram. We are at Dahlia Law, @ DAHLIALAW. And you can also contact us via web. You can schedule an appointment, give us a call. All that contact information is at our website, which is www.dahlialawgroup.com. Until next week, folks, thank you very, very, very much. The COVID infection and death numbers are up just about everywhere. A HIPAA authorization cannot save your life, but a mask can. So please wear one. And if you have one to spare, give it to a friend. Wash your hands and wash the baby's hands. Wash everybody's hands. All right. We'll see you all next week. Thank you.